Jamie, exciting new role for you at the club. You had many hats you've worn during your time at the Rhinos, but a new one. Tell us a bit about your new role.
Yeah, the hats are really important, Phil, and you've nailed it there. I think the totality of the experience that I've had from being 9 years old, being educated, entertained and inspired as a Leeds fan, watching my heroes growing up on the South Stand, being fortunate for 22 or so years to play on the pitch and fulfil a boyhood dream, go on a real special journey with an exceptional group of individuals and ultimately be successful along the way, some success and adversity, through which we learned many lessons. And then more recently, obviously over in the North Stand there as an assistant coach, and the totality of all that has given me a real good insight into a 30-year journey, which has ultimately helped me to look forward into the future. And hopefully what we want to try and do in this new role is just recreate an environment for everybody, whether you're a player, an employee of Leeds Rhinos, a fan, a stakeholder, a sponsor, a charity that's coming here to have the very best experience, to be able to come to work and be the very best version of yourself, fulfil your potential and make sure that everything that happens out here Friday night at 8 o'clock on that dance floor is positive, is inspiring, is educating, and that everybody feels that they are a part of it. Yeah, that's it. All them hats have revealed, been revelatory, and it's important that every employee that works here feels that they're a part of the success of the club.
And what does your new role involve?
A little bit of everything. I think ultimately it's going to involve sitting down with Owen. You know, in this last few months we've spoken a fair bit when we've had a chance to take a deep breath in between preparations to talk about what it looks like into the future. And I can't help but make the parallel, probably shouldn't really, with him and his uncle Tony when he come through and he was the catalyst behind my generation of players. You just feel like there's a real precipice coming and an opportunity for us culturally to pull everybody together, get our communication as good as it can be, and make sure every department is thriving and operating as good as it possibly can. I think it's really important, Phil. When I signed for Leeds as a 15-year-old, there was one team that played here fortnightly, and there was an alliance and academy obviously that supported that. But Gary Etherington had a vision that the club would be used as a resource 365 days a year, and I always joke that he's got me here 360 days of them. But actually in 2022 we've got a wheelchair rugby league team who's just been successful again last weekend, you know, winning championships. We've got a women's rugby league team who's in a final at the Totally Wicked Stadium this weekend, and you know, contrast to where season started, we've got a men's team that's been exceptional in recent weeks and got another great opportunity this week to be in a playoff semi-final. You know, there's a lot out there, a lot of work, a lot of culture, a lot of people wearing this Rhinos brand, and it's important that we're all on the same page, fulfilling our mission and vision, which is to change lives through sport, the power of sport. And I think I'm probably the embodiment, the example of that. You know, my life's been changed again and again, redefined on a multitude of occasions, and my overarching gratitude towards that is this motivation to get out of bed every day.
Jamie, just how tough a decision was it to leave the coaching behind? I know you've immensely enjoyed that experience.
Yeah, coaching's been awesome. It's all about giving back, isn't it? Mentoring, educating, encouraging, and I'll certainly miss sitting down with some young blokes. You know, my journey with Michael Lesky, Cam Smith, you know, they've come to real fruition now, world class, or getting towards that anyway. Certainly Mickey should have a real good international campaign, I reckon, this year, and that's where all gratification comes from, sitting down with Jared O'Connor and watching him make that transition from being quite a small forward like I was at middle of the field to an opportunity at dummy half, in which he's taken with both hands and been exceptional. Young Sammy Walters, Morgan Gannon, who's a prodigy waiting to happen. Those little bits I'll certainly miss. I think it's interesting, Phil, how I ended up in that coaching role in the first place when I retired. You know, the idea was to fulfil a multitude of roles within the club. Obviously some media that I've done a lot of work with you over the years, a little bit with Rob Oates commercially, spent a little bit of time like I will be on Thursday up there with Chadwick Lawrence. I've worked as a trustee at Leeds Rhinos Foundation, and the rugby department was obviously what was familiar to me, but when COVID hit, it obviously transpired that you couldn't cross-pollinate into different environments, and I ended up back where I was familiar, what I understood where my friends were, and you know, dug out a bit of a groove and loved it, enjoyed it, learned a hell of a lot. Probably the most revelatory period of my life, if I'm honest with you, in terms of self-understanding and self-revelation. But that period in the 6 weeks up to rowing coming, I think I learnt as much about what I don't want to do as much as what I do want to do and where my true talents lie. It was the most exhilarating period of my life, probably because of the weight of the challenge, less about the role, but the weight of the challenge in context to where I've been on my journey with Rhinos. Horrendous on many occasions, but actually the most alive I felt because of the challenge, like being on the end of a cliff every single day, and I feel like that's where I've thrived. And I suppose a part of me looked back and thought, if you don't look back on your deathbed and most of your weeks have felt like that, then you've probably not fulfilled the most of your days. And this opportunity to come up and pull together the totality of all the clubs, sitting down with Rowan and seeing the bigger picture, thinking that he's got long term for the club, it's really exciting. And I love the way that he thinks, the collective nature of how everybody's got a role to play, whether you're Phil cooking the breakfast on the morning, whether it's Phil Daly taking the photographs and then it to players for their social media accounts and telling the story in the changing rooms. We were there at Catalan, weren't we, last week, and we felt part of that journey. Well, everybody's got to understand that the roles that they play is a part of that journey. Listen, coaching's one way of doing it, but ultimately it's always been about Leeds as well for me. So I think to fully grow as a coach, you've probably got to go sideways, maybe backwards and go to other places, and that's just not conducive with motivation that I've always had to serve my hometown club. But this role is a real positive one where I'll hopefully be able to work really close with Rowan, judging by some of the conversations we've had, and certainly aligning that link between Kirkstall as a training ground and Headingley Stadium, where the staff put on the event every Friday night, and making sure that's all as aligned as possible, so that, God willing, in coming future we've got some repeated and sustained success where we're all singing, marching on together in the same tone as we have done in the last month or so.
And as well as linking the whole business around and the culture around that, I know you're also going to be taking the message out to the city and the wider area, and you are the most enthusiastic man anyone's ever met, and actually turning that into getting people through the gates here at Headingley. Yeah,
and that was one of the issues as well, Phil. I've always been a jack of all trades, master of none, and as the poem continues, sometimes better than a master of one. I've had my fingers in a lot of pies, a lot of hats as you started off there. And certainly, our foundation is probably the biggest deliverer of our external provisions, and to be able to support them and carry the message, the spirit of the Rhino into the community is massive. It's really important. My work that I've done with some of the stakeholders and sponsors, such as Sedulo as an ambassador, Inspire North, Leeds 2023, Red Ladder, some of the events that I've hosted in and around the city as an ambassador at Leeds Rhinos, and tried to encapsulate a lot of the cultural messages that we've embodied, that we've embraced over the last 20 or so years. And I've always said, that spirit of the Rhino is all about feeding it into the community so they all feel a part of it. And some of our partner sporting teams with Leeds Knights, Leeds United, Josh Warrington's, I love them all. Sporting Leeds is very united, and we've got a mission and a journey together. But listen, we can only control what we control from a Leeds Rhinos point of view, and if we can interest people into the game of rugby league, for me the best sport in the world, in a really interesting year with a World Cup on the horizon, a World Cup that's going to feature some of our men who again are in the semi-final this weekend, our women who are in the final this weekend, and some of our wheelchair rugby team who've just won another championship as well. I think that's really exciting and lots to get excited about here at the Leeds Rhinos. So this next role is really exciting, and I can't wait to get going.
And you enjoyed success, historic success as a player. You've had a part of a successful team as a coach. What does success look like in terms of this new role? And
that's a really good question, because what success isn't, or certainly culture isn't, or environments isn't, is copying and pasting it from one group of people to another. What worked and the way we behaved and our values then, can't we just lift it up with that group of players and put on a group that exists now in a totally different time? So success looks like the smiles on people's faces, and that might sound a little bit intangible and fluffy, but you can feel that energy, as I said, when people are singing, marching on together. It's that consistent effort that you see out on the pitch. It's people's lives being changed by the power of sport. It's Leeds Rhinos constantly finding themselves with opportunities to win trophies, to be successful. It's bringing new people and feeling that thriving, attractive, magnetic nature that we can obviously portray with what we do in our trade and our task and our mission. And just again, I'll keep repeating myself, and I make no apologies, just making sure we're all on board in pushing in the same direction, changing lives through sport and making a difference. You know, again, I feel like an embodiment of that, and I'm exceptionally grateful for opportunities that I've had. So why shouldn't so many of our fans and followers have that same opportunity as well?